All right, let's do this here. I'm gonna get this going. We'll open up. I'm thinking what I want to do is continue work on that mod that we were working on before, the canyon area. So we'll get that going, and then we can screw around with the points as we go along. Um, we want to switch to canyon mod. Here we go. I'm going to share this with you guys. Hope we didn't lose anything from last time. No, we're good. All right. Let's get this view so you can see it with it. Boom. Hold on. Come on now. There it is. It's funny that the aspect ratio on the editor is messed up when I make it full screen. Wonder what's the deal with that. All right, cool. Now you guys can see the editor. That's where we left off last time. How if I make it smaller? Just gonna center it on there, like that. Boom. Turbo Nerd, rank 3 Dork Lord, rank 4 Ultra Cool. uh, we'll figure out the ranks later. Right now there are actually no ranks, but I'll see how many points you guys rack up for just being in here. Right now, the person leading in points is me. That's why am I getting points? That's dumb. I need to remove myself from the. I shouldn't be getting points. Crack 9000 is the one leading in points right now. He must have been in here the longest. Crank 9000. Is it possible to stretch bridges to make them longer or shorter? It's not really. One thing that's actually a little bit of a bummer about the Grim Dawn editor is it has only uniform scaling. A lot of other editors like Unreal and Unity and stuff like that allow you to scale in different axes, but in Grim Dawn we can only uniform scale. So if you want to make if you have let's see, let's go grab a bridge here. If we grab a bridge, um, structures, bridge planks. Okay, this is a silly bridge, but that's all right. That works. If we grab this bridge, we can make it bigger, and technically that makes it span a longer distance, but it's just making it bigger. And this is actually one of the things I wanted to talk about later on when we do this is though we support the editor supports scaling of assets, you really want to be careful doing it to assets that are human scaled to begin with. So for example, this scaffold right here, I would consider it human scaled, meaning that the boards are sort of like the width that a board would be compared to the actual character. And if you scale this up, it's going to look silly, right? The boards are going to be gigantic. This board is going to be like 40 inches across now, right? Um, and also, the artists will end up yelling at you too. Not that you guys have to worry about this, but if I was to scale this up and put it in the game, the artist would start getting pissed at me because if you can see right here, the textures start getting really stretched out and blurry, and they look bad when they scale up. Because when you scale it up, you're essentially just scaling up everything. So we try not to scale that much. Um, we can scale things that aren't human scaled, like for example, um, this rock. Like if I throw this rock out here, I could scale this rock up pretty good. In fact, I think I've already scaled it up quite a lot for this use of it, and I could scale it up quite a bit bigger. But you get the same problem here. You get these rock pieces that look gigantic, right? A character is going to be. Let me see. We got a character is. Where did our little guy go? We had a guy sitting around here somewhere. I don't know where I put him. In any case, a character is going to be really small compared to these rocks, and if in particular if you have it close to similar rocks that are the normal size, you can see how the texture is way bigger, and the detail on the rocks are way bigger. It just kind of looks out of place. So you want to be really careful making stuff scaled up too large. I hope that answers your question a little bit. That was a little bit of a drawn out question too. Can you stretch bridges? You cannot. You cannot scale. You can scale bridges. You cannot stretch them. You can't scale them in different axes like you can in Unity or Unreal. There's some perf reasons for doing that. If I remember this correctly, each different scale of an object, essentially like every object that you place in the scene is an instance version of an asset, right? So if you take rock A and you put rock A a bunch of times in there, Rock A with the same orientation and same scale is a little bit cheaper, I think, than Rock A with a different different rotation and a different scale. So the more axes you can scale that in, the more expensive each particular one that you place becomes in the level. Unless I'm crazy, I think that's the way it goes. Um, there is not a maximum. Tufty Fella is wondering if there's a maximum number of floors you can have to a building. No, there isn't a maximum number of floors that you can have to a building. Something weird that will happen if you start building a building too high, like I guess the only thing I have in here right now to use as an example is this sucker right here. Um, you start building a building too high. Say this is the first floor of our building, and this is the second floor of our building, and this is the third floor of our building, right? Um, you start building a building too high, and you start getting this instance where you have a pathable surface up here, and then potentially you also have a pathable surface down here behind it. And clicking can get a little bit weird because sometimes it gets confused where you're clicking, so you can have movement problems. Um, it can think that you're actually tapping around. If I'm moving up, trying to move up here, and I tap slightly off the edge of this, it actually thinks I'm tapping down here, so it may not move the character at all, or may not move the character correctly. So height can cause a little bit of issues like that. I know that in Grim Dawn they've made some improvements to the engine to make some of that a little bit better, but it's still not perfect. Um, Yeah, Tufty Fella, wall fading can be a bit of an issue too. The more you stack stuff, the more stuff has to fade out, and you get weird things when you have multiple stacks. But that's all visual stuff. You can get away with some of that visual and messiness. Conan 701, welcome, man. Were you here last time when we did this level thing? Um, I don't know if you guys actually appreciate doing this or not, but I was really excited to do some more of it after last time. So what we're gonna do is I'm gonna keep working on this front edge right here. We're gonna finish this up, and I think also what I want to do is I want to have this. I want to have the entrance to this area come out of a cave, because some people were talking about how we actually build caves. So I think what we're going to do is we're going to put a little bit of a cave underground entrance right here. I don't know what assets I'm going to use to do that. I think there's just some cave assets that I might be able to find. So what we'll do right now is we'll work on this area right here, and we'll get a cave entrance coming out of here, and maybe we'll get that actual cave started. What should I change the name of this stream to so people know what's up? It's got to be a better name for it than Grim Dawn level design. That sounds boring. Kranos, uh, uh, you're saying that Grim Dawn player is using the default attack and it's triggering you? Is he not like assigning his skills? Ghibli, maybe Zentai can shed a little bit more light on why they did that. Ghibli's wondering why we have underground entrances work the way they do in Grim Dawn compared to where they worked in Titan Quest. In Titan Quest, undergrounds were like a portal. Essentially, you could walk right through a cave entrance and you seamlessly walked into the underground. In Grim Dawn, we do undergrounds as a load screen, and there's a few reasons for that right off the bat. One of them is just that it gives us more flexibility in what an entrance can be and what an underground itself can be. So, for example, like if you wanted to have in Titan Quest, all the underground entrances had to be something that you could literally walk through. Like it had to be a wide open cave or a door, right? So you could actually walk through it. But if you wanted to have an underground entrance that was like a hole in the ground or the little bulkhead on the side of a basement to a building, you couldn't do that because you can't actually walk through there, right? So in Grim Dawn, since we use like a portal load screen where you like tap on the portal and it does a little load and then takes you to the underground. Um, Both the entrances to the undergrounds and the undergrounds themselves can be whatever we want them to be. Uh, uh, so it's that gives us a little bit of flexibility there. There may also be technical reasons why they did it, um, but doing those layouts like that sort of restricts what you can do in an underground to what you can make work in the above ground layout, if that makes any sense. Yeah, there also was a bit of a problem in just making that work. You had to the links had to work in a specific way, and when you went to set them up, sometimes they broke, and if you moved the world around, they broke, and you had to go back and set them up again. The links now, they work better, I guess. They don't break. Yeah, I think it's a better system. So let's keep going here. I want to make, continuing with my like sort of like geological thing here. We want to try to make this a little more interesting than just a flat edge. It's always cool when you have details like this little cut here. Like I can imagine that probably what happened is water ran down off the mountain, right, and it made this gouge, maybe the same way that it made the canyon down below. So we're gonna continue with that idea up here. And it's also really nice to just have that kind of detail when the player actually, you know what? Here's a good example of screwing it up a little bit. Oops, just put a spike out here. I don't want to do that. Yeah, so check this out. I just put this nice little cut back in here to add a little bit of detail to the level, but I kind of did it at a bad angle, right? Because the camera is actually facing up in this way, and this would look much cooler if it was facing up in this way. So I think what I'll do is fill this in and actually make it so that the cut kind of goes up through here a little bit. That'll give us a better angle on the camera. You always got to be thinking about this stuff. It doesn't really matter what kind of game you're making, but you always got to be thinking about, even in a first-person shooter, you've got to be thinking about what the player is going to be looking at and what they're going to care to look at. In a first-person shooter, it's a little bit different because the player can actually look all around. What's up, Prince Xavier? I thought it said Princess Xavier. Prince Xavier, welcome, man. So yeah. Anyway, I was saying you really want to be considering what the player is going to look at. In a game like Grim Dawn, though the camera can be rotated, most players aren't going to rotate it, and so they're going to be seeing the stuff that you see from the default camera angle. So they're going to see this kind of stuff, and though they might zoom out and see a little bit more of it, and they might rotate the camera and see it from different angles, most players aren't actually going to rotate the camera. So you want to make sure that they have a good view. The same thing kind of happens in shooters. In shooters, generally the player is focusing sort of on a band through the middle of the screen. A lot of players don't look up and down that much. They do it, but they kind of just walk around with tunnel vision, looking straight in front of them. So you got to try to set up levels when you're making levels for a shooter so that you have a big reveal on a scene, like when you come around a corner at eye level, so that the player can really get a chance to see it. It seems funny, but so many players when they play shooters, even they walk around with this sort of like tunnel vision. What? Got a little error that just popped up. I think that's weird. I think the art manager's mad at me. Asset manager. In any case, yeah, you got to be thinking about all that stuff, and for different types of games, there's different sort of rules that you follow. Oh, here's a good tip. So I've never really known why this was like this. I don't know why this doesn't just default to this. It's a relic from the Titan Quest days. But if you are using the terrain raise plateau tool or the terrain raise and lower tool, and you paint terrain underneath an asset that's higher than the terrain the asset's already on, it actually lifts up that asset. So I don't really know why it defaults to that still. But to avoid that, you can hold down the Alt button, and you can paint under assets, and it won't lift them up. So if you get in the the Grim Dawn editor and you having a problem with that, just remember to hold down the Alt button whenever you're drawing any terrain, or painting any terrain. Super Troop, I didn't know that. I haven't played the new Shadow Warrior games, although I actually heard that they were pretty good. Ghibli, thank you. I don't know. One of the things that I think you can run into as a problem when you're using these tools is, geez, what is this error that I keep having? Oh, you know what? I think I have a file in the asset manager that's like not checked out or something. So let's switch over to our mod here. Just give me a second, guys. I got to go into the asset manager and do a little bit of maintenance here. What's up, Traffic Devourer? Welcome. Huh, I do have those. I have everything checked out. I don't know why it's getting mad at me. In any case, let's just keep going. All right, so we're gonna take this big cliff face, these couple cliff faces right here actually, and we're gonna sort of build out this mountain face. I also don't want this terrain here to be one level. So just because that's boring. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna lower this. Oh, look at that! I got dupes. I'm going to take this whole face here, this whole cliff face, and I'm going to lower it a little bit. And then I'm going to make a little bit of a cut in over here to give us some detail in the foreground. Because you don't want to, what you're going to end up doing is you're going to end up coming out of this cave that we're going to have up here. We may not end up using this part of the level down here, but we'll see. You're going to end up coming out of this cave that we're going to have up here in this wall, and you don't want to be just standing on like a flat piece of terrain. You know, you want there to be some interesting detail to it. So we'll put a little bit of. Keep messing up that selection, don't I? Lower this down even more. I think I might actually put in a little cut in here too, like I did on that other area, just to give it even more detail down the road. Yeah, that's gonna look nice. All right, so yeah, what we're gonna do now is I'll go along here with these. I want this to be pretty rocky and craggy in here. Kind of line this edge in some of the places with these pathable pieces. And I was saying before that you can get into kind of trouble with these when you're spawning monsters, because say for example these two rocks right here are actually pathable. You can walk on top of them. And this is a big difference between this and the Titan Quest editor. In the Titan Quest editor, in order to have objects that you could walk on top of, they had to be a tile that actually stitched with the terrain. And I can't show you in the Grim Dawn editor how that worked, but it was annoying. It was really a pain in the butt. You would stitch it with the terrain, and it would actually be attached to the terrain, and the terrain would raise and lower around it, so that the player could walk up onto it. In Grim Dawn, you can just have an asset that builds nav mesh over the top of it and walks on it. But what can happen here is, since we've placed this rock here and this rock here, we have two pathable surfaces. If we tried to spawn an enemy right here, it might actually spawn down here because it didn't notice this pathable surface and it spawned on the one below it. So you just have to be careful of that when you're building surfaces like that. I just keep reloading one of those. That's weird. Okay. We got to get Eric in here too sometime. He does some really crazy level stuff. Here's a trick that looks pretty good. If you take some of these big rocks like this and you lay them like extremely on their side, and then lower them into the terrain, you can get all kinds of cool shapes out of them. So I want to make this like craggy edge right here. Take this rock, stick it in the terrain, done. That's one of the things that I think is that you need to learn about level design is to try to use. You got to learn to try to use all the different assets in a bunch of different ways. I just screwed up my editor, didn't I? It's minimize it and bring it back up. There we go. Learning to use assets that were meant in one way. Like if you look at this rock, it's kind of clear that it was made to be this big flat clip face, and it's got what we call multi-rock basically, which is that you can use it from every different direction, right? You can use it straight on like this, or straight on like this, or straight on the back, but you also can rotate it on its side, use it like this as a top edge of something. But you can also rotate it like mostly flat like this. Is something I see Eric and Madeira do a bunch, and stick it so it's sticking up out of the ground, which gives some really cool rock details. You know, like rocks aren't always just coming up out of the ground like a spire or whatever. A lot of times rocks are just laying right underneath the surface and they're kind of sticking up a little bit here and there, you know, this kind of thing like this. Now this is really not that great for playable area, but for an area that we're going to have that's mostly just decorative, I think it's probably just fine to have it like that. And also we could go back in here, we could fill up these sort of nasty spots with, if I was going to do this as a playable area, I might try to clean it up a little bit more like that. That way you don't have these things where it's sticking out. This nav mesh is going to get kind of weird there, and I might fill these up with trees and rocks later. We'll check that out when we get to it. But I can kind of take these rocks that I'm laying on their sides and create some really irregular rock formations with them. So, like so. I don't really like that one. That also doesn't look really great. I think maybe we just need to rotate this one off a little bit. Get the same. There we go. That's a little bit better. This kind of goes with our theme of having those like runoff areas, right? Maybe, you know what I might actually do? I might actually put another cut like this that looks like it's going through here. And we'll make our cave part of that. So we'll cut in one of these things, check, kind of see if you can see it a little bit from the camera angle. And what we'll do is we'll cut in right here, and we'll end up putting our cave entrance, I think, right there. Yeah, Ghibli, that's a good point. So from a performance perspective, in the past, this would be a bit of an issue, right? Because you've got all this mesh that's underneath the terrain, and it's rendering all that, even though it's underneath the terrain. But nowadays, it almost doesn't matter. Like yeah, it does matter at a really high level, but what matters more is how many different meshes you have in a scene, not necessarily how much geometry you have in a scene. It used to be that the amount of raw geometry in the scene was a huge issue, and it's really not such a problem anymore. You know, especially in a scene like this. If I was gonna have a scene where there was 300 rocks like this that are underneath the terrain, it'd be terribly inefficient. But really, it doesn't. You know, with this scene that's gonna have 10 or 20 of the same rock in it, it really doesn't matter. And that's part of the reason why you'll see that I'm building this whole area. The basis for this whole area essentially out of 3 assets, and I guess 4. This big flat cliff face right here, this sort of smaller version of that, which I don't even really need. I just like it because it adds a little bit of variety here and there. Like if we were to take this cliff face and just repeat it back over and over again, it's clearly the same. But even if we just take this and kind of stick it in there, or sort of stick it in there every once in a while, it makes everything look a little bit different, gives it a little bit different shape. So I'm building this whole area essentially out of this, and these 2. And the reason for that is because these rocks are just the basic layout of my area. I'm going to end up having a bunch of other assets in here too, and I don't want to waste too much of my budget, if you will, on having a bunch of different rocks, right? I'm going to end up in this area. I'm going to end up having trees and all this scaffolding and potentially enemies as well. And I don't want to waste any of the budget I have available on just having 1,000 different kinds of rocks in here. So we try to keep it trim as much as we can. Sorry if I go silent when I'm actually working on stuff. It kind of takes up all my brain power to be positioning things around. So this is another instance. I just put a lot of work into that. Player's never going to see it, so that's kind of a waste. Maybe we actually might end up making this level so you can come down at it from a different level down here too. I could see us do a thing where there's like a path that goes this way, and then once you come down the path this way, you get a slightly different view of everything. In fact, you might not get any view. We can do some scaffolding that comes down over here too. Maybe we'll do that. This is like Bob Ross. Yeah, Madeira's talking about, I don't know if you guys are talking about size of an object. Yeah, so the things that Madeira are talking about, let's go over this to clarify all of it. So the raw geometry that you're drawing is not so much of a huge issue. It does affect load times, and it can get a little bit crazy. So when I say raw geometry, I mean, for those of you who maybe don't deal, let's see if we can view wireframe. Okay, so if we look at this rock, and they're incredibly dense anyway. There's like an insane number of polys in this rock. I don't remember if there's a counter in here or not, but if you look at this rock itself, let's go to a place where the terrain is cleaned up. This is the geometry of the rock. You can see each one of these triangles essentially is called a poly, and that sort of makes up the geometry of the rock. It used to be that you had to really limit the amount of geometry on screen, but nowadays that's not such a huge issue. The things that are a huge issue are the raw number of different assets that you have, because each asset has to be loaded by itself. So if I had, if I was using 45 different kinds of rocks in here, it's going to cause a bit of a problem. The other thing that's a huge issue is draw count and fill of the screen. And draw count comes into play when you're having a bunch of different assets, right? If each asset is a draw, or each type of asset is draw, or each type of material on an asset is a different draw. That's a number of times it has to render the screen in order to render all the different types of things that are there. The other thing is fill. If you have this comes into play mostly with transparent particles. So a particle effect. Say I have a big blob particle effect on the screen. I don't know of any right now, but I could probably dig something up. Let's look this up here. UI Riftgate locations. Okay, so if we look at this Riftgate right here, there's a bunch of different particles in this Riftgate, and they're all transparent, right? And that means that each one of them I can see some parts of it. Like you look at these things that are swirling around here, you can see all these little black and green bits swirling around. The texture for those is a big square. It's probably 512 by 512. But you're only seeing little bits of that, right? And drawing through that texture to show you the world that's behind it in the places where it's transparent. The more textures you have layered over the top of each other like that, the more dense that area becomes, the more sort of overdraw that there is. And that's very costly to have textures overdrawing and overdrawing and overdrawing each other. If I have multiple textures stacked up atop each other that are all transparent, that's really costly. And it's one of the reasons why particle effects from your abilities cause such a hit on performance, because you have this really insane overdraw. I don't know if this editor has, I'm trying to think if this editor actually has a view mode for showing overdraw. Madeira, do you remember if this editor has a view mode for overdraw? In any case, some editors, if you look at Unreal and Unity, you can turn on view mode for overdraw, and it shows a gradient from green to red in areas where there's extreme overdraw. So like if I was looking at an area like this where it's just the ground material, there'd be no overdraw, it would be green. If I was looking at an area like this where there's 4 or 5 different transparent textures overdrawing on top of each other, that would start to become orange and even red in extreme cases. And that's where we can start to have some performance issues. So like if I was to fill up this scene with particle effect after particle effect after particle effect after particle effect, the overdraw is going to get really, really extreme in this area. And that's going to cause some serious performance issues. That looks freaking bonkers. In any case, we don't really have to worry about that. One thing that we do have to worry about, though, in this area is the depth of it. So Remember a while back when I was showing the way that the game renders the scene is essentially like a cone, a cone projected from the camera out to capture which assets are actually in the scene, and it draws those assets. The more assets you have to draw, the more costly the scene is, and the more potential you have for performance problems. The problem that we start to have with big, deep levels like this with lots of dramatic height changes is when it draws that cone. See if I put a bunch of these down here. We're actually going to decorate this later. But say I'm standing right here, right? I can't really even see those assets that are down there. But because this is so, I just hit caps lock. Let's see real quick. If I hit caps lock and I position the camera in any one place and I hit caps lock, it shows me what assets are being drawn from when the player is standing right there. So player's standing right here and they're seeing this scene. These are the assets that they're actually seeing on screen, but these are the additional assets that it's actually drawing, because what happens is when it's drawing that cone from the camera to determine what assets it should draw, the cone goes right straight through the terrain and it starts to pick up things that are down below at an oblique angle that you can't actually see, but that are actually below the camera from the view that you're in. So this is actually a bit of a problem that we have with this level. With our big our dramatic drop off here, we're gonna have to be really careful not to put too many assets down in this area down here. Otherwise, performance is going to be a big problem. So what I'll probably end up doing down there is just using 3 or 4 of these big cliff objects to fill that up. Can't even follow what you guys are talking about now. I'm just going to keep building. You guys carry on. Let's find our cave entrance and see what that's going to look like. Records, level art, undergrounds. No, not that one. Let's turn on the preview here so we can find it quick. Aha! Nah, that's a lame cave entrance. That looks too small. We want something epic. All right. I don't see one that I want to use. So what we're going to do is we're going to make our own cave entrance, and we will throw an underground entrance in there afterwards, instead of using a prepackaged one. So I'm going to take this little archway right here, maybe. I kind of don't like that one either. It's a little bit lame. Huh. I want to build a cave entrance that's cooler than that basic one, right? I want a big sort of epic one. Let's go through a bunch of the different underground entrances. There might actually be one that we want to use here. So level art. I think it's underground entrances, right? Undergrounds. Door objects. Let's look through all of our different door objects. We've got a bunch of cool door objects here. We have a cave that's cool enough for this area, though. I want this whole area to be really epic. Got a bunch of different underground entrances. I mean, we have really cool underground entrances for like man-made stuff. That's old. That's awesome, but doesn't really fit our cave. Oh, you know what we could do? Oh, that might be a little bit crazy. Turn McDrogan's butt into a portal. What? I was gonna say we could build some sort of crazy like watchtower thing up here, but I don't think I want to do that. Not right now, at least. Hold on. There we go. That one's pretty sweet. That's not bad. Yeah. That might actually work. Is that the same rock texture that the one we're using? Ah, it's a different rock texture. Son of a bee. All right, you know what? Let's see how this looks with the rocks that we have. I think it's actually going to look bad, so we won't use it, but yeah, that's going to look dumb. Damn it. That's what I'm looking for, though. I'm looking for a really big epic entrance like that. That's pretty huge. In fact, I actually think this was made to be lowered down more like that. Yeah. Yeah, I suppose I could. I suppose I could cover those over. But you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna. We can just use one of these generic door entrances. This is not really the one because this is. We're gonna make our own probably, but we can use one of these generic door entrances, um, and I'll put a black texture behind it, and we'll build like a big craggy cave entrance in there. So let's go get our. Let's probably get this one and this one, or maybe these two. Um, this is one of the reasons why I create this zoo, by the way, because if you lay out the assets that you're going to use frequently in a little bit of a zoo like this, you just have to scroll over here and copy them in order to get the ones that you want specifically. Otherwise, if you don't do that, you end up having to go into the list on the right here. Best case scenario is you know what the thing is you're looking for, and you can search for it. If you don't know what the thing you're looking for, you're going to end up looking through the list forever, like I just did to try to find an underground entrance. So um, it's really good to have that asset zoo of stuff. What we can do here, I think, is we'll create like a really big craggy cave entrance with these two in particular. So you're just like coming out of this big old crack in the mountain there. I'm gonna cut this back in so we can see what it's actually gonna look like. What I'll end up doing is I'll end up taking a big flat plane of, I don't know if there is actually one. There might actually be one in the game already. Let's search for it here. Blackwater cocktail. Yeah, I don't know if I don't actually have an object that's just a flat black plane. I'll probably end up creating that in the end so that this looks like it goes into blackness. Um, uh, but for now, I think I'll just model my cliff face, and then we'll go create one later. I swear I made one already though, which is weird. I could have sworn I made one in the past. We want this to be a little bit smoother on the side so we get a better. I keep getting this error. That's weird. I must not have checked it. I must not have checked all my stuff right. All right, we need to have a top to this. I really don't like this one, but we'll see how it looks. That's gonna look dumb, isn't it? Oh, you know what? It's not. I have an idea. Yeah. Check this out. We can actually use this as an overhang, and then we'll plop one of these bigger rocks right up above it, and that's going to make it seem like the cliff is sort of like in underneath the face of the mountain a little bit. That's actually gonna be pretty cool. This could be a bit of an issue for pathing. We want to get that mountain. We want the mountain to hang over the top of it, or kind of sit back. We probably want it to sit back, right? Because this is a big vertical face. It's like the entrance to the Mines of Moria. In fact, I might even put some water up here just to kind of pay homage to that. Yeah, that's not bad. That's not bad. If we had a black plane behind there, it would look like it was going into darkness, and that would actually be kind of a cool underground entrance. We'll come back to that at some point once I've made an asset for a black plane, but um, that looks pretty cool. I'm going to cut this back in for a little bit more detail on the mountains here, and I'm actually going to make the mountain come across the front of this here, because I want the player to feel like they're coming out in an area where everything's really steep. I have a place in mind on the overworld map where this actually might be, and where it is some insanely mountainous terrain. So some places like we've never really gone yet. What's up, Carl boy? How's it going? I'm sorry again if I'm not paying good attention to you guys, but this kind of sucks up my brain power a little bit, and I can't focus on other stuff. So I'll keep trying to check in the chat window and see what you guys are up to. Let's look at the points. I want to check out this points thing. Who's the leader in points right now? Oh man, Ghibli, what did you do to get more points? What's going on here? Some of you guys are getting points for something. Ghibli's pulling ahead here. I don't really know why, but he has 18 points all of a sudden. Jamswolf. How many points does Jamswolf have? Next time we get in here, we'll have ranks too instead of this Jamswolf. Why did Jamswolf not have any points? What's going on here? Jamswolf, it looks like you're not in the. Why are you gonna go ahead of the points? Zantai, how many points does Zantai have? Zantai. Oh, 17 points. For some reason, I have 57. I have 62 points. Why do I have so many points? This doesn't make any sense. You should be getting 1 point for every 5 minutes that you watch. Oh, wait. No, that's right. Yeah. That's the way it should be. Some of you get points for following who haven't followed yet. Somebody's getting points for something. I don't know what it is. Ghibli's got 20 now. Craig 9000's got 18. Maybe you get a point for every chat message that you. Let's see. Active user bonus. A point someone will get when talking in chat with the payout interval on top of it. Oh, okay. You guys are getting points for the number of chat messages you type. That's why. So Ghibli has actually typed more. It's the command is exclamation points, if you guys are wondering. Oh, okay. All right, let's keep going back here. I want to try to frame this cave up with something in the foreground here. So this comes back to the thing I was saying before, is that everything feels more epic when we talk about vistas, right? Stuff can actually feel more epic when there's stuff in the foreground too. You get the sense a lot of times in these games that you're standing on a plateau looking at everything below you. I found Diablo 3 to kind of be like that, where like they have a lot of vistas, that stuff below you, but you can actually do stuff that's in the foreground too that makes the player feel awesome. Like if I get these two edges lined up just right, they need to be a little bit further forward. But if I get these two edges just lined up just right, when the player comes out of that cave, there'll be a couple big things in the foreground framing them up, and that'll look really cool. So I'm actually going to make these out of rocks later, but for now, until we get that framing just right, I'm going to paint them with terrain. See, that could be really cool, right? If this was lower right here, this could be really cool. You come out of this cave and it's like boom, there's big rocks on the left and the right of the camera, right? In fact, we want to probably pull this over to the side a little bit more even, so that there's barely just a little boom. Yep. That could be really cool. That makes us feel like there's a big mountain surrounding us. Put some happy little mountains right here. I'm going to kind of slope the front side of this so that the camera interference is not quite so bad. And then I'm actually going to build these out of our rock assets later, but I want to get the framing just right. Okay, yeah, cool. So you're going to come out of this cave. It's going to look like there's darkness in here, right? Because I'll put a big plane of black in there, and that'll make it look like this dark behind the cave. I'm going to rotate this a little bit, clean up that edge. Boom. All right, cool. There's our cave entrance. Got a lot of cool rock formations to do up here, a lot of cool rock formations to do over here, and I'm just going to keep doing that. Keep plowing forward. Yeah, Jamswolf, I agree. You need coffee. Yeah, cheers to the coffee right here. Here's a weird fact about Grappa. I drink a ton of coffee, but I only drink iced coffee because I have some sort of weird phobia about drinking hot drinks. I can't drink hot stuff. Never been able to do it. I couldn't even drink like a mug of soup. If you gave me a mug of soup, I wouldn't do Dude, I drink like 9 cups of iced coffee a day. I've had so much coffee already that I'm sitting here. I'm kind of like shaking. Orange, why can't you drink coffee? Ghibli, I can't even drink soup out of a bowl. Like I can eat soup with a spoon, but if I was to pick up the bowl and drink it, oh man, it freaks me out, dude. Everybody has weird phobias. I'm not afraid of almost anything else. I have literally no fears of almost anything, but for some reason I really dislike drinking hot stuff. Maybe I burned the crap out of myself when I was a kid. I'm gonna say that. I'm gonna say what happened was I burned my mouth really bad when I was a kid. How does this window look in the stream? It's so small. I want it to be bigger. There we go. Now it fits. Okay. Yeah, dude, Madeira is a tea monster. That guy must drink like 25 teas a day. Okay, what we're gonna do is I'm gonna start decking this out with some actual rock assets. But the first thing I want to do is sort of smooth out the edges. I find that smoothing out the edges helps me squeeze those rocks in there better because basically what I'm going to be trying to do is cram the rocks into the terrain, and smoothing out the edges sort of moves back the edge a little bit. If you don't smooth out the edge, when you start filling it with rocks, you'll find that the rocks are just sort of filling in your gameplay space too much. So we're going to take our big cliff assets here. We want this corner here to sort of fade away. Actually want it to fade away quite a lot though, like that. What do I want to do? I want to create a little plateau here because that'll give us another place to put some detail later. So I'll actually put that there and cut this back in a little bit, and we can have a little plateau up there with some freaking mountain goats on it or something, if we had any mountain goats in the game. What you're going to see me do here, though, is basically just take this same asset and copy and paste it 1,000 times because there's not any reason to use anything different. The player's never going to, we're going to rotate this and turn it and stuff like that in so many different directions that the player's never really going to know that we use the same asset over and over again. Do I want the mountain to overhang here? I really don't want the mountain to overhang, so I'm going to tilt everything back a little bit. This sucker needs to get tilted back a little bit more too. We don't want the mountain to overhang because that would feel weird. Like mountains don't really do that, right? They would fall over. Yeah, we need to get you guys. Some of y'all need to make us some decent emoticons. I can replace it now that I have the bot working. Thanks, Dalek. That's great. Now that I have the bot working, we can actually get our own custom emoticons in here. So we'll do that at some point. Dude, I got to tell you something. The right next to my office here, on my left, is my barn, and my barn was built in 1900. It's old as stink, and it has a bunch of holes in it. And the freaking squirrels get in there, and the squirrels are chewing on the wall right outside my office, and it makes me want to go ballistic. Like I need to go get my shotgun and shoot a bunch of holes in the wall. It's driving me insane. Oh God. Gonna keep going here. Trying to forget about the squirrels. Mud, what are you talking about? What model? Oh, what model shotgun do I have? I have a Remington 870 and a Mossberg 500. My Mossberg 500 is my favorite shotgun, though. It's old as stink. It's an old Mossberg Shopkeeper. It's a really cool shotgun. Here, I'll get you a link to it. Let me see if I can find a link to this here. Oh, I can't find a link very quickly though. Yeah, it's this gun right here. Here, check this out. It's a picture of my old Mossberg 500. That's not actually mine, but that's the style that it is. It's a very short gun. It's a very short gun. It's like an old shopkeeper's gun, kind of like the keep under the counter kind of gun. It's just barely legal in Massachusetts, which is awesome. All right, so we got our big mountain here. Got our cave entrance. Got some cool stuff in the foreground to make it look like we're not at the top of a plateau. Just gonna keep decking that out. I want to use some assets. There's some rock assets that I granite. Let's search for some granite rocks, because there's some rocks that I wanted to use that I didn't actually put in my zoo here. Some crazy pointy ones that I think would be really cool for this area. This one. Maybe we have that one in the zoo already. Maybe we have these already. Do we have these over here already? We have the really pointy ones, but I think these are the sort of round top ones. Yeah, we gotta get that one over here too. Delic, dude, don't worry about it. You guys, like I said, you guys can grief me all you want. I don't have sensitive feelings, so I'm not hurt by whatever you say. You're not gonna hurt my feel bads. Grief me all you want. If I'd be stupid to be on here with a bunch of people that had played the game for thousands of hours and not expect to get my ass creeped off. One thing I try to do when I'm building rocks too is I try to think about like the direction of erosion potentially, and also the direction of like crazy like geological pushes and stuff. Like I'm thinking if this thing is poking up right here, you want to have this kind of line where the edge of it. You don't want to have this weird drop off where it kind of just cuts in a weird way. You want to have a line to be like, okay, this was a rock formation that was poking out and broke off a bunch of times, and maybe at some point way back in bazillion years ago, it got sort of pushed out by some geological upheaval or something like that, or maybe it was a part of a core of a volcano or something like that. You want to try to think about those kind of things, not because it really matters to players. Honestly, it doesn't, but it will help you think of cool ways to do things differently. I think is the key there. You'll end up with much cooler shapes in the long run. I'm using a lot of rocks here. This might actually be a huge performance issue because, like I was saying before, we're going to end up drawing all the stuff that's down here. So we'll see. We'll see how it goes. I'm going to keep this stuff up here pretty simple because the player can't really see it. It really only needs to be there both for shadow casting and also to, so if the player rotates the camera, there's something nice there to see. That said, though, I want to try to keep it trim. I don't want to put too many more assets in this area. All right, let's get the sun back over the top here so we can see what's going on. Oh, we can't because those rocks are too high. It's going to have to look into the shadow here. All right, so I'm going to go back in here. I'm going to hold down the Alt button so that when I smooth that stuff out, it doesn't raise up any of my rocks. And I'm going to smooth these areas out. I don't want to have. One thing that we want to try to avoid is, since we're using these rocks for our. If you look at Diablo, they have a lot of areas that are just like. Oops, that was a bummer. They have a lot of areas where the rocks just basically look like height map that has been sort of painted and then smoothed out or whatever. We want to try to avoid doing that. In Grim Dawn, most of our cliff faces and rocks are actually built out of these rock assets like this. It's just a different style. I really don't like the way the terrain can look really sort of low rent and low res when you try to model rocks out of it. It kind of looks lame. So this is just the way that we do things. Some people do stuff different. It can actually be a lot faster to do stuff this way, although it seems tedious to have to place a bunch of assets. You can get yourself into real big trouble when you try to go in and model the terrain out a bunch. But what I do want to do is when we do stuff that's like dirt slopes or something like that, we'll use the terrain to do that because we don't want to have to model slopes of dirt. But I want to try to make this area feel like it's not just rocks. There's some like dirt that's piled up in here or kind of fallen down like a little bit of a landslide. So we're going to raise up both the top and the bottom. And we'll get this kind of look when we come down through here. That's going to look sweet coming out of that cave. We can even put some, I keep pointing at the screen thinking you guys can see it. We can even put some details up in here when you come out of the cave stuff to see. So we've got our cave done. I think I might, just for more guidance, because one of the things I was talking about before is you kind of have to guide the player around. One of the reasons I put this cut in here, not only just to back this up, was so I could kind of guide the player towards the direction I want them to take. So I'll rotate this around a little bit, and I'm going to make this cut in go this way because there's going to be a bridge right here. So I want the player to walk along this edge right here as close as they can to here to go across the bridge that will be here, and then they'll end up seeing this sort of vista up here. I might actually even put some rock details here to make them go around those too, so they go up along the edge as far as possible. I'm gonna take this sucker, rotate it around here. Actually, you know what? I don't want to use this here. Do I? Maybe I do. Let's see. Does that look kind of lame? That looks kind of artificial, doesn't it? Oh, that's actually not bad. There we go. That's pretty good. Take this little rock right here. Boom. Make a nice little flat place to walk. Tilt it a little bit there. I like using these rocks because you can make these really tight, like little jaggedy sort of canyon type setups with them like this. I like this little spot right there. Eventually, these look a little bit weird like this because eventually they'll actually have a ground material on them. These rocks you can actually go in. It's actually kind of a cool feature that Grim Dawn has that Titan Quest didn't have. An asset like this, you can't actually paint on it. It just is as it is. But an asset like this is actually paintable and pathable piece of rock. So on the top surface here later on, when I add more, here, let's actually, we'll save these levels right now. Go back into our terrain tool. If I add a layer, let's see what we do is grass. So just add a quick grass layer. I'm not really sure which grass I'm going to use, but this is a good one to use as an example. I can actually paint over the top of this. So when I'm actually going to go in here at some point, paint all this terrain in, I'm going to paint over the top of these rocks, and it's going to look like a cool rock face where the grass grows right up to the edge of it, which is a neat thing to do. But we're not going to use that. We're not going to use that layer because that terrain texture stinks. Firefly, normally Firefly is asking about the assets that are hidden behind surfaces that are not actually going to be shown. Some engines like Unreal can use assets in a scene as occluders, and what an occluder does is, say for example, say I've got this piece of paper and this pen in my scene, and I've got the pen positioned. I don't know if you guys can see this. I've got the pen positioned over here. If I put the paper in front of it, it'll stop drawing the pen. So the engine's not rendering the pen anymore. So it's saving on performance because that pen is occluded by the piece of paper. In Unreal, you can go in and you can set different assets to be occluders. You can set different assets to be occluded by occluders, and that helps performance. So if I had a situation like this, where I had a bunch of rock assets that were not visible, down the face of this thing, I could set these up here as occluders, and they would clip unless the player was looking at them. In Grim Dawn, we don't generally do that, and we sort of started. When I say we don't generally do that, we don't really have a feature that does that. We have a very basic occlusion system that is clipping things that are not visible by the camera currently. We don't usually build regions like this. We set out to build this region sort of with the knowledge that maybe it would be acceptable performance-wise. Maybe there's not going to be any combat or a lot of combat up here because we're going to have a lot of assets in the scene just to make it look good. I've always wanted to build a big canyon that felt really epic deep, but we generally can't do that in the game because it's a huge performance problem. Like for example, if you ever played Titan Quest 1, there was the Great Wall level. I really, 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 when I built parts of those levels, really wanted the Great Wall level to have a huge drop off on one side of it, but that was just going to draw way too many assets out in the distance. So we couldn't do it. So now, since we're building this level and it may or may not ever get used for anything, I'm not really taking into consideration too much the performance stuff, apart from just bringing it up to you guys so you understand how it works, or understand better how it works. One thing I will do though is when we go down to this side, I'm going to take. This can be a little bit of a double-edged sword, because if I make this rock bigger, like if I was to make this rock really big, it's going to draw from much further away, because that camera frustum that I was talking about, that cone that comes out of the camera that determines what gets drawn and what doesn't, it's get rendered and what doesn't, is going to make contact with this, because it's actually doing it based on here. Let's hide these. Let's see if we can see hitboxes. View hitboxes. See messages? No, I don't know why that's not working. I might not see my hitboxes. Oh, well, that filter's not working right anyway. These objects have big hitboxes around them, and that's what it's actually using to determine whether or not it's that camera's angle is colliding with it. But what I want to do with these is I want to try to make them big enough so that they're going to save me on perf on the backside of here, because I don't want to have too many rocks back here, right? So I'm actually going to make these things that I do the back faces of these pretty big, and I'm only going to use a couple of them, right? I don't want to use too many of them, because these are things going to get drawn that most players are not actually going to see. So that being bigger like that allows me to make that whole face out of one single rock, as opposed to over here where I made it out of 4 or 5. And if I do come back in here and try to optimize this for perf, I might try to find assets like that I can remove from the scene to make it a little bit less heavy. Could I sculpt a statue of myself out of the kill facet? Probably not. That might be a little bit of a stretch. That would be pretty insane. If I had that kind of skill, I could be like Bob Ross. This is like the Bob Ross hour. Grim Dawn Bob Ross hour. All right, so where are we at here? We've got our cave and exit, which will be this eventually. We'll touch that up a little bit next time. We'll make some special assets to do that with. We've got a cool view coming out of there. We got the player's going to walk. This kind of looks dumb, doesn't it? Top of this rock looks super low res in that camera, from that camera angle. What happens if we flip it? That's a little bit better, but we still got this geometry sticking up here that looks kind of weird. We'll address that later. I don't like that just round nipple sticking up out of there. Maybe it is actually cooler like this. In any case, we can address that when we go back to polish it. Maybe we'll actually put a different rock there. We'll put a higher detail rock sort of like on the top of it, so that when it's up in the camera, it looks nicer. I can't believe there's a Bob Ross emoticon. That's awesome. Yeah, like Madeira is saying, like basically, our perf issue in this scene is not going to be these rocks. Any perf issue that we have in this scene is actually going to be combat. So though we can definitely make a scene that's very costly, that is bad for combat, this is actually one of the issues I think with Port Valkyrie, is that it's both very combat dense and very asset dense as far as like scene assets go. And while the scene assets are definitely not the biggest problem, it's really the fact that there's a bunch of enemies. It doesn't help. It's an issue. Very Aether Storm dense. Suck it. All right, cool. The next thing we want to do is we want to do a bunch of cool stuff with this scaffolding. So I'm actually going to go grab a bunch of the scaffolding assets that we don't have yet, because what we're going to try to do, what we want to do is we want to make it look like, okay, somebody came out of this cave at some point. And what I'm thinking about for this area is that this is an area of the world that nobody has really gone for a really long time, or nobody had gone for a really long time. It's really ancient. Maybe there's something crazy here that they're searching for. And people came here more recently and started building all this scaffolding or repairing a bunch of scaffolding that had been here at some point, and using it to navigate across all these cliff faces and across this giant canyon because there's something up the canyon somewhere that they're trying to get to. So I want to build out a huge area of scaffolding, and we got to figure out what we need to do that. So I'm going to start panning through this list of scaffold assets and see what we've got. We got that bridge. I got that one already. Got the short one too. What do we got? We need some ramps. We got those little junk assets. Those will help us decorate it better. Okay, that's what we need. We need that. We get those. We need a curved ramp. Okay, that's where we are. We need a slope. That's right. That's the perfect one right there. Sloped ramp. A flat piece that's leaning out over the edge. Short slope. That's a good one. A reverse short slope. That's good too. We're going to need both of those. Curved slope. That's good. Yep. Yep. Curved slope the other direction. Yep. So this is kind of the boring part where I go through all the assets and try to figure out which ones I might actually be able to build this with. We want that one too. Oh, screw it. We got to get some platforms. A couple platforms. There's a good platform. This is for holding up those slopes. Low curved. A curved one. It's really worth, if you're working on a level, it's really worth doing this, in my opinion, ahead of time. It takes a little bit of time to get in here and pick through the assets, but if you do this once, you're going to have all the stuff that you need to make this, and you don't have to keep going back to the files to look for it, right? You can just sit in here, just go back here and copy and paste the stuff that you want. So we're going to put a bunch of these platforms in here. We really want that. That's the ramp that we want right there. Heck yeah. That's the ramp. And we want the short version of that too. We don't need that. That's just holding stuff up. Angled version of it. Stairs. Definitely gotta have some stairs. Probably want both staircases because they have entrances from different sides. Low, straight 2. Raised straight. We want that. Curved. We can come back and get some of these if we need them later. Boom, raised, curved. A lot of times what will happen when you're getting to the point where you start doing stuff like this, you're kind of getting to the point where the stuff that you make you're going to do over and over again till you get it right. When I'm doing the rocks, I know how the rocks work. I've used the rocks 1,000 times. I know how to make crazy looking rock formations, but when I'm doing this kind of stuff, I'm not really sure how I want to build out this scaffold so that it actually works. So I might just try to start throwing some assets in here, checking it out. But I know that I'm going to kind of come back here a bunch of times. So probably that platform right there. It's high platform, right? That looks cool, right? That's a good start. Our goal is to try to get the player off this top edge and down on the lower edge. But what we want to do in the process is we want to get them. What I want to do in the process is I want to get them out close to this edge so that at some point they're going to be like just hanging out over this edge, looking down and being like, "Holy crap, this is a really deep canyon." All right, this looks pretty good. I hope our scaffolding goes up as high as that cliff face, because if it doesn't, I'm gonna be really sad. Oh! Shit. That sucks. I would really rather not have to use another asset to get that down here further. That's gonna, like, I could totally put something like this down lower so it's like built off of itself, but that's really performance intensive because now I've got more assets down there for no reason. I think that's the highest scaffolding that I've got though. Raised slope, raised slope, raised slope, raised slope, raised slope. Ooh, what's this one? Is that higher than the other ones? It's not, is it? Shoot. Yeah. Raised straight. That's the one we're using already, I think. Hopefully. All right, those are all little pieces that we'll come back to later when we're polishing this. But man, I really want this to work, but it's not. we could lower that. We could lower that front edge of that cliff like a little bit. I'd really rather not have to do that, but I think we might have to, for the sake of not having to use more assets. Yeah, this is the same one I'm using already. Okay, so what we'll do is we'll go in here, take all these cliff pieces, and we'll kind of cheat it lower so that cheat this a little bit lower. What's this piece right here? That's weird. That doesn't need to be in there. Oh, maybe it does. It's filling a gap in there. All right, so that should be pretty good. Cheat it a little bit lower so that it fits here. Oh, here's another tip for all you guys who are actually trying to use this editor. When you start having a bunch of assets that are piled up on each other like this, it can become kind of difficult to select the one that you want. It uses the hitbox of an object to determine what you're selecting, and every time you tap, it goes to a different object. Something that can help you do your selections quicker, and Eric told me this one, is when you click on a thing and it's the wrong thing, if you hit Control Z, it deselects it, and then it will actually select the next one that it thinks you're trying to tap on. So if I keep my mouse in one spot, it'll keep selecting different objects every time I hit Control Z and tap again. So that can help you make your selections if it's not working right. We're still up in the air with this though. Do you know what I'm going to do? I'm just going to keep cheating here and make it look like this cliff face is not even. So we're gonna make it look like they built some of these like sitting on the rocks a little bit. The nice thing about wood structures is it makes perfectly good sense that they would like cut off. You know, they're gonna try to set it on something that's flat, but unlike something that's built out of stone, it makes perfectly good sense that like this foot is sitting on this rock, right? This footing underneath this thing is sitting on this rock. And since I don't need the player to play down here, normally this terrain underneath can be as crazy as I need it to be. There we go. That's not so bad. Now our scaffolding's not floating. Actually gives it a cool little bit of detail. So our next piece is going to be kind of like hanging over this edge, but I don't know if we have enough room. Yeah, perfect, we do. We have enough room to put this one in there. That's great. Actually, you know what? I might use the long one. I have a little bit of a crazy hook around there. I might come back in here at some point and do some really nuts stuff with the scaffolding. Like I'm actually kind of thinking that I might have it run across the front here so that there's different. One of the things that we do for Grim Dawn that's different from Titan Quest is we have a lot of the levels are sort of open-ended and you can move through them in any way that you want. I might actually have the scaffolding here lead to a bridge here, but another piece of scaffolding down here lead to a bridge over here so that you can kind of go through the level at a different path if you want to. Ooh, just pasted that out in the middle of nowhere for some reason. So I'm thinking I can have. Oh, does that fit in there like nearly perfectly? It does, doesn't it? That's cool. Move these rocks around so it's not clipping with the rocks so much. I think I can actually get rid of this one. I don't need that one at all. I can use these other two in here to kind of close that gap. It's always good to. I mean, we were talking about how it doesn't really matter that much the number of assets that we're using here, but it is always kind of good to trim it down when you can. That still makes a pretty clean cliff edge, and I just got rid of 2 assets, so it's a good call. We'll lower this back down to the same edge as that stuff. Same height, pardon me. want this far edge to be a little bit higher, though. We'll keep it the same height that it was before, like that, and then we'll get in here, smooth this out for later. Dalek's saying that he really likes the idea that the way that there's so many different paths through the levels. I think it's part of the reason that makes Grim Dawn so replayable is that there are sort of like primary paths, and there are paths that everybody takes and other paths that everybody ignores. But it means that when you come back in the game later on, you've played it a bunch of time. Not when you've played it, like you guys have like hundreds and hundreds of hours, because I'm sure you've been on every freaking path there is. But when you're first starting and you're only played it for like 100 hours, a couple hundred hours, you can come. This is what I get for not holding down the shift button, by the way. Those two assets just fell into the ground because I wasn't holding down, pardon me, alt. But yeah, when you come back later, you know, if you played 100 hours, you realize that some path that you never even knew was there. It's a lot of fun. It's a big difference from Titan Quest, because Titan Quest was very linear and it had some side areas, but they were also very linear. I think this is a much more interesting way to do it. So I'm going to do this now. We don't really need to do it now, but one of the things that we're going to have a problem with here is we want to make sure that we're not going to pass through this. Next time we do this, we'll get in here and make this actually playable. We're not going to pass through it right now, but we have this pathable asset that's on the top of this cliff edge right here, right? We want to make sure that this pathable asset lines up really closely with our scaffolding, and then we're going to use another pathable asset, which is this sucker right here. Oops. And we're going to sort of use it to patch the edge up. It would make sense when they were building this that they had sort of built these little ramps or whatever. But we'll use these kind of assets to make it to actually make it pathable. So I'm not really going to clean it up right now, but I could use 2 or 3 different ones of these, like this one too, and sort of make it look like they put boards here so they won't trip on the gap between the rocks and the scaffold itself. And of course, we always want to try to make sure that stuff isn't clipping too much, but like I was showing you before, the top edge of this is going to be painted like dirt, so it might make sense that it's sort of clipping with the mud that's on top of it. That looks pretty ghetto, but we'll leave it for now. We want to finish the overall layout of this. Now, my bridge, I'm going to say that they built the bridge going across here from the furthest out point off this peak right here, because why not? That's what they would do, right? And I think we started out by measuring this, so praying that it's still at the right distance. Bam! Look at that. Oh, that's beautiful. Man, that's going to be epic. That's going to be crazy right there. This is going to give us a little bit of trouble because we're going to have to try to make this gap small enough and level enough and all that kind of stuff so that the player can actually path across this. Actually, you know what? I don't want to do that. I want to put this down here. I think I want to put this one going across from here. Yeah, like that. Is that better for the camera angle? Yeah. Look at this. This will be so much better. You'll be able to see this thing sticking out in the foreground and some of that stuff in the background too. But I screwed it up because this is not out far enough. So we're going to have to bump this edge out a little bit like this. And oh, fail! Epic fail. I really don't want this bridge to go across this other area. Like, I guess if we had, you know what? You know, it'd be kind of cool. I don't think there's a wrecked version of this bridge, but it would be kind of cool to do. This might be what I'll do. If there's a wrecked version of this bridge, we'll look and see if there's something that looks like a wrecked version of this bridge. And we could actually do 2, and we could make it so that these objects swap every time that you play the area, and one of the bridges will be wrecked and the other one won't. That's something that we could actually try to do. We have a cool system in the game that allows you to take 2 entities and make it so that only one of them spawns, or you can take a group of entities and make it so only one of them spawns. So that lets us create cool randomization. The levels, you'll notice in some places where there'll be rubble that's blocking a door, one playthrough and that rubble's not there. That's using that system to turn those pieces of rubble on and off. But this is actually, oops, what's going on here? Is that the edge of my level? I'm gonna have to add a level in here to fill this little gap, but that's okay. I don't know why there'd be 2 bridges here. It kind of doesn't make a lot of sense, but I think it's gonna look cool anyway, so we'll do it. Maybe there's two bridges here because they were taking something in and out, and they needed one for like when they were going in and one for their going out, so that they wouldn't get in each other's ways or something like that. I don't know. Sounds good to me. Again, a lot of that stuff doesn't matter. Like as a level designer, you always like to try to make your levels make sense, and you always try to tell a little story with what's going on. And I think it makes a difference in the long run. It can make a difference because it can make your game world feel more alive. But I think to a lot of players, it just doesn't matter. They don't give a stink. It's mostly just for your gratification, and also just because I think it generally makes you, the more you're thinking about your levels, the more deeply you're thinking about the way they're laid out, the better you're gonna make them. You know, they matter more to you, and you're really thinking about why you did each thing. We have a height issue too, don't we? It still looks fine. Do we have a height issue? Are these things different heights? Yeah, they are. That's an easy thing to fix, though. What we'll do is we'll take this edge here and we'll slope it down a little bit. This, and again, I've said this a couple times. At some point, we're gonna have to come in here and make all these things actually pathable, and that's gonna give us a little bit of trouble. But what it will mean is we'll have to tweak these assets, like where we place these bridges and where we place these rocks a little bit. In each case, we'll have to tweak them differently so that they actually work, so that the path mesh actually navigates on top of them. But we'll get into that in a different session. Pardon me. Here's the thing that's good to do. Just copy the same assets, drag them down, rotate them a little bit. Makes a huge difference in time. Saves a lot of time for you. Doesn't really matter to the player because they're never going to notice that they're the same assets. Especially if you treat them a little bit like this. Give them a little bit of rotate around. They'll look completely different. One thing you want to be careful of, though, here's a good example of something you want to be careful of. See this little dark spot right here, this little dark moon? You can see that same thing right here. So we definitely don't want that. That's when it becomes obvious that you're using assets over and over again. So we'll rotate this one on the other side. And then we won't have that same dark spot down there. That it won't be really obvious to people that that's the same asset. That's one of those small things that separates a level made by a pro from a level that's just made by an average modder, and the difference between like a pro modder and somebody who's never done it before is you'll get somebody will come into one of these levels and just say like, take this asset and use it a bunch of times like this over and over and over again. And what's going to happen is when the player crosses here, they're going to see this little thing here, and then they're going to see it again here, and it's just going to look repetitive. But even though with the stuff that I've done, if you really look closely, you can see some of the shapes that are repetitive. You won't notice it as much if you just rotate things, turn things, put things in a little bit different orientation. That's sort of like a pro move, and a pro way to reuse assets. I wonder if we have a lower version of this slope, though. We don't have to actually. More grief from Ghibli. I appreciate it. You know what? It doesn't even hurt. I'm not even sad about it. You know what I am sad about, though? I may not end up being able to use this front bridge. I really want to, but there's a couple issues I have. It's got a height issue between this area and that area. I can slope it, and the game can play okay and like on a minor slope, but you don't want to have too many slopes in the game. It makes things weird. It might be okay in this instance. Man, that's so dramatic, though. It's gonna feel like you're right on the edge of falling off of this, though. So I think I might keep it. I just don't know how. I'm going to get the player down off the scaffolding into this area in time. Another thing here, I just totally caused this too, didn't I? Another thing that you don't want to show the height map like this, like you can see right here, because it's actually getting too stretched out. You can see how that texture is stretching, right where my cursor is. You really don't want that because again, that's another thing that looks kind of unpro. Stretched textures they just look ugly. You don't want them. So I'm gonna kind of lower that down to hide those. Same thing over here. Though I do want some of these things to have this slopes of height map, I don't want to make them too steep, right? I want them to be pretty smooth so that the textures aren't stretching and so that it doesn't look ghetto. That's cool with that underhang right there. This is where the water would have cut through. So in any case, I think we made some pretty good progress. We sort of built out this whole area. We're kind of working on our scaffolding over here. This is going to be a nuts level. I don't know how the perf is going to be in here, but we'll figure it out. I think it was pretty much wrapped up for the stream though. It's like 3:34, so I got to get back to work on the X-Pack. We'll work on this again though. If you guys are enjoying this, I don't know if it's boring for you guys to just sit here and watch me do this, but if it's not, I'm glad to keep doing it. I enjoy it. I don't know if it's whoa, get a little bit of a loop there. That's weird. I appreciate you guys coming to hang out with me. In any case, if you guys want to keep watching this, next time we do a stream, and we'll start off and we'll do a little survey and see if everybody wants to do this. Let's look. Oh, before you go, don't leave yet. Friday, we'll do some gameplay. We'll actually play on Friday. Maybe I'll log in later this week at night, or maybe even tonight sometime, and we'll actually work on this level some more. Let's check the points. What's everybody's points? Oh my God. Oh, that's me. I have 117 points. Who's the points leader right now? Oh, there needs to be a scoreboard. We need to be able to pop up a scoreboard and show people what the score is. I'll tell the points leader. Oh, Ghibli. Ghibli's in the lead with 38 points. Crank 9,000, 34 points. Oh man. Dalek was I added a bot to the stream, Lokar bot. Next time when you play, you should be able to ask him more questions. But right now, you can really only ask him. Sulu, you must have points. In any case, what I'm probably going to do is give you loyalists a bunch of points for hanging out with me all this time anyway. We'll give you ranks and all that kind of stuff. You can push around new members, just like on the forums. James Wolf, dude, for any of you guys who didn't, and you guys are not adding up in here, I'll get it fixed. This was just sort of a trial run. We'll get it fixed. We'll hook you guys, all you loyalists, up with some ranks. You can grief noobs or whatever, and we'll give points for different stuff. Eventually, what I want to do is we were doing like voting on when I would die in the past, and we were doing that with an external app. I want to set it up so that we're doing it with an internal app, and you guys are earning points and stuff for it. And at some point, maybe we'll do some stupid giveaway for it, or we'll just keep giving you ranks so that you can lord over other viewers. In any case, I'll keep working on that and getting it set up. This is sort of a trial run of it. We'll hook you up. Jams Wolf, according to my thing, you have 19 points. So you're not, it's just not replying to you for some reason. In any case, thank you guys for hanging out with me. I love hanging out with you. I love doing this level editing stuff. Next stream, we'll actually do some gameplay. You guys can watch me fail at playing the game some more. But sometime this week, we'll get on and finish this level out some because I'm really excited about it. Thank you very much. Talk to you soon. I'll get the bot working next time. See you on Friday or sometime this week.